Welcome, everyone. I am thrilled to have you here today. Research used to be about finding information, but today it is about making sense of too much information. In this session, we will explore how to use Claude to transform your research from a chaotic scavenger hunt into a structured, highly efficient expedition. Let's get started. Let's kick things off by defining what modern research methodology actually means in the age of AI. Research methodology isn't just a fancy term academics throw around. It is your systematic approach to solving a problem. Using a structured methodology versus randomly searching the web is like using a GPS versus wandering aimlessly through a city. Both might get you there, but only one is reliable. We are going to implement a strict four-phase framework: design, gathering, analysis, and documentation. The goal here isn't to have Claude do the research for you. Instead, you are going to use Claude as a brilliant, untiring librarian who has read every book in the building. You remain the lead investigator, providing the human judgment, while Claude amplifies your ability to process and synthesize massive amounts of text. Looking at this flowchart, you can see our entire research journey mapped out. We start on the left with Phase 1, Research Design, where we define our questions. This flows into Phase 2, Information Gathering, where we evaluate sources. Next is Phase 3, Analysis and Synthesis, where Claude helps us find patterns. Finally, we arrive at Phase 4, Documentation, where we summarize our actionable conclusions. We will tackle each of these boxes step by step. Let's move to Phase 1. The most common mistake novice researchers make is starting with a vague question. If you ask Claude, "Tell me about electric cars," you are going to get a generic, encyclopedia-style data dump. Vague questions always yield vague answers. Instead, we use Claude to actively brainstorm and narrow our focus. I want you to treat Claude as your sounding board. You might start by saying, "Claude, I want to research electric vehicles, but my topic feels too broad. Can you help me narrow it down?" Claude will then help you identify specific aspects like barriers to rural EV adoption, infrastructure costs, or battery longevity. By asking Claude to reframe your initial thought, you transition from a broad topic into a razor-sharp, actionable research question that guides everything that follows. Here we see the funnel of refinement. You drop a vague topic like remote work into the Claude collaboration node. Claude acts as a prism, splitting your broad topic into highly specific research avenues like option 1, 2, and 3. From there, you select the most promising path, drilling down until you reach that polished, highly refined research question at the bottom. It is a systematic funneling process. Now that we have our question, we enter Phase 2, Information Gathering. But we don't want to gather like a hoarder at a garage sale. We want quality, not quantity. To do this, we employ a classic librarian framework known as the CRAP test. That stands for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. You can use Claude as your ultimate BS detector here. When you find an article, paste it into Claude and explicitly prompt, "Evaluate this source's credibility using the CRAP test." Claude will systematically break down when it was published, who wrote it, whether the claims are backed by data, and if there is a hidden sales agenda. This prevents you from building your research on a foundation of bad data or biased marketing material disguised as science. This decision tree represents your new quality control firewall. A raw source document enters the Claude evaluation gate. If Claude's CRAP analysis reveals high credibility, it takes the top path and is included in your research base. If Claude identifies severe bias or lack of authority, it routes to the bottom path where you either reject it or flag its constraints. Only verified, high-quality data reaches the extraction phase. Welcome to Phase 3, Analysis and Synthesis. This is where research becomes art. When you are reading 10 different 50-page reports, your human brain simply cannot hold all those variables in its working memory at once. You lose the forest for the trees. Claude, however, has a massive context window. You can load all your source summaries into Claude and use a highly specific prompt. "Help me identify patterns across these 10 sources. Where do the experts agree, and where do they violently disagree?" Claude will instantly cross-reference the data. It will map out the baseline requirements, highlight the unique differentiators, and reveal hidden costs or gaps in the literature. You are no longer just summarizing. You are generating entirely new insights from the intersections of your data. Look at the synthesis process in this mind map. We feed multiple diverse research sources into Claude's pattern recognition engine. Claude processes these and splits the analysis into 3 critical outputs: where the authors agree, where they contradict each other, and what gaps are missing entirely from the conversation. These three outputs then merge at the bottom to form a brand new, synthesized insight that you could not have achieved by reading just one source. To research like a true professional, we need to deploy advanced prompting techniques to stress test our findings. It is human nature to fall victim to confirmation bias. We seek data that proves we are right. We must actively use Claude to fight this. I highly recommend the devil's advocate prompt. Once you have a working theory, you tell Claude, play devil's advocate. Attack my hypothesis. What contradicting evidence might exist? Another incredible tool is the reverse research method. You start with the conclusion and work backward. You ask Claude, if a competitor claims their software increases productivity by 50%, what specific metrics would they need to prove it? This shifts Claude from an answering machine into a rigorous academic challenger, ensuring your final conclusions are practically bulletproof. This flowchart is your stress test pipeline. You take your preliminary findings and run them through our advanced prompts. Taking the top path, the devil's advocate prompt identifies logical weaknesses and biases. Taking the bottom path, the reverse research prompt forces you to define the exact evidence required to validate the claim. By surviving both of these rigorous checks, you emerge on the right with a significantly strengthened, robust conclusion. We have reached phase 4, documentation. You've done the hard work, but if you can't communicate your findings effectively, the research is useless. We use Claude here for the art of distillation. The secret technique is the progressive summary. You don't just ask for a generic recap. You prompt Claude, summarize this research in exactly one sentence. Next, expand it into a one-paragraph executive summary. Finally, provide a comprehensive bulleted list of the evidence. This approach creates a perfectly tiered document. You have the one-sentence hook for the busy executive, the paragraph for the manager, and the detailed bullets for the implementation team. By organizing your findings this way, you ensure your research is not just stored, but is actually actionable across your entire organization. Here we visualize the architecture of our final output. The Claude processing engine at the bottom takes your raw data and applies distillation, formatting, and audience tone adaptation. It pushes this up into the research documentation class, which is strictly partitioned into the executive summary, the key points, the comprehensive details, and the actionable conclusions. This object-oriented approach to documentation guarantees that no critical insight is lost in translation. Let's ground all of this in a real-time, highly practical use case. Imagine you are launching a meditation app and need to do market research. Step 1, you don't just start Googling. You open Claude and prompt, I am researching the meditation app market. Help me create a plan covering key players and user pain points. Claude builds your roadmap. Step 2, you gather competitor feature lists and user reviews, feeding them into Claude to evaluate for bias and accuracy. Step 3, here is the magic. You prompt Claude, synthesize all this competitor data into a comparison matrix and identify the hidden gaps. Because you followed the systematic methodology, Claude's pattern recognition fires perfectly. It reveals that while 90% of competitors focus on sleep and morning routines, almost no one is targeting rapid, mid-workday stress relief. You just found your million-dollar market differentiator in a fraction of the time. Follow the sequence diagram for our market research sprint. The user initiates by requesting a plan from Claude. Armed with the scope, the user goes out to gather raw market data. This raw text is fed back into Claude with a precise synthesis prompt. Claude crunches the variables and returns the final output, a structured competitive matrix highlighting the unique, unserved market opportunity. It is a seamless, highly structured human-AI collaboration. As we wrap up, we must address the critical pitfalls of AI research. The most dangerous trap is AI over-reliance. Claude is brilliant, but it can hallucinate. You must always cross-reference critical claims against authoritative, original sources. Second, avoid shallow synthesis. Don't let Claude just summarize. Force it to think deeper by asking, what hidden patterns am I missing here? Third, beware of confirmation bias. You must actively prompt Claude to find evidence that proves you wrong. My golden standard is the 80-20 rule. Use Claude for 80% of the heavy lifting, the formatting, the synthesis, the pattern recognition, but reserve the final 20% strictly for your human critical judgment. You make the final call. If you master this systematic methodology, your productivity and insight generation will skyrocket. Thank you so much for joining me today. I invite you to like, subscribe, and visit quicktechie.com for premium certification prep, including Q&A banks, full ebooks, audiobooks, full-length training, and interview guides. Happy researching! Our final diagram shows how to navigate research traps. When you encounter the dual traps of AI dependency and confirmation bias, you apply our specific mitigations. For dependency, you strictly apply the 80-20 rule and manual verification. For bias, you deploy devil's advocate prompting. By applying these robust countermeasures, you bypass the traps and arrive safely at the bottom node, professional, defensible research.